So today we're going to start on section 2, lesson 1 of the making of a scientist. If you have not completed your section 1 test, you need to go back and do that before you start on this lesson. Today we're going to take a break from Richard Feynman and we're actually going to read a new article. It's called Galileo Galilei, Biography, Inventions, and Other Facts by Nola Taylor Reid. And we're going to practice determining the meaning of unknown words and determine the main idea and key details of this article. So, again, our culminating writing task is: how does the process of scientific inquiry lead to the development of advanced technology? Which is essentially asking us, how does the process of asking those scientific questions lead to better technology? So before we start reading, the article, is it literary fiction or is it informational nonfiction? Well, as we've learned from all the rest of our articles in this unit, it's informational. Everything that we're going to read in this unit is going to be informational, which means it's nonfiction, it is real. So while we are reading today, I want you to focus on what information does the text provide about Galileo's accomplishments, meaning was he able to do with his life before he passed. So go over here. You're gonna have to ignore how wonky it looks. That's just how it ended up saving on my computer, but you can read it. That's the point. So, Galileo Galilei, Biography, Inventions, and Other Facts by Nola Taylor, her last name now Tillman. And this is actually a picture of Galileo. So, Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei provided a number of scientific insights that laid the foundation for future scientists. His investigation of the laws of motion and improvements on the telescope helped further the understanding of the world and universe around him. Both led him to question the current belief of the time, that all things revolved around the earth. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle taught that heavier objects fall faster than lighter ones, a belief still held in Galileo's lifetime. But Galileo wasn't convinced. Experimenting with balls of different sizes and weights, he rolled them down ramps with various inclinations. Now, inclinations just means that some were more steep than others. If you take a look at a slide, slides for babies don't go very high. To let the babies go down slow. But if you go on a slide like in our playground, it's a lot higher because you're bigger and you can handle the speed. That's what he did with the different balls. His experiments revealed that all of the balls boasted or had the same acceleration speed independent of their mass. Basically, that's a really fancy way of saying it didn't matter how big the balls were, they went down the ramp at the same time. Although some modern physicists remain determined to prove him wrong, he also demonstrated that objects thrown in the air travel along a parabola. Now, a parabola is something you can ask Mr. Boston about. It's basically an arc. At the same time, Galileo worked with pendulums. In his life, accurate timekeeping was virtually non existent. Galileo observed, however, that the steady motion of a pendulum could improve this. In 1602, he determined that the time it takes a pendulum to swing back and forth does not depend on the arc of the swing. I'm going to have to ignore the train. Near the end of his lifetime, Galileo designed the first pendulum clock. Galileo is often incorrectly credited with the creation of a telescope. Instead, he significantly improved upon them. In 1609, he first learned of the existence of the spyglass, which excited him. He began to experiment with telescope making, going so far as to grind and polish his own lenses. His telescope allowed him to see with a magnification of 8 or 9 times. In comparison, spyglasses of the day only provided a magnification of 3. Of all his telescope discoveries, he is perhaps most known for his discovery of the four most massive moons of Jupiter, now known as the Galilean moons: Io, Ganymede, Europa, and Callisto. When NASA sent a mission to Jupiter in the 1990s, it was called Galileo in honor of the famed astronomer. And we're going to ignore that part because that's not in your article that you have. Okay. Galileo may also have made the first recorded studies of the planet Neptune, though he did not recognize it as a planet. While observing Jupiter's moons in 1612 and 1613, he recorded a nearby star whose position is not found in any modern catalogs. For several decades that We have known for several decades that this unknown star was actually the planet Neptune, University of Melbourne physicist David Jameson told Space.com. Computer simulations show the precision of his observations, revealing that Neptune would have looked just like a faint star, almost exactly where Galileo observed it. In Galileo's lifetime, all celestial bodies, so all of the planets, were thought to orbit the Earth. Supported by the Catholic Church, teaching opposite of this system was declared heresy in 1615. So basically, the Catholic Church in England at this time was really, really, really powerful. And Galileo was actually Italian, I believe. But either way, the Catholic Church was super, super powerful. And so nobody really went against the Catholic Church. If you had questions about how the world worked, you went to the Catholic Church to ask them because not everybody got to go to school. So the Catholic Church really didn't want Galileo teaching opposite to what they were teaching. How Galileo, however, did not agree. His research, including his observation of the phases of Venus and the fact that Jupiter boasted moons that did not orbit Earth, supported the Copernican system, which correctly stated that the Earth and other planets circle the sun. In 1616, he was summoned to Rome and warned not to teach or write about this controversial theory. But in 1632, believing that he could write on the subject if he treated it as a mathematical proposition, basically, he was going to treat it as a giant math problem, he published work on the Copernican system. He was found guilty of heresy and was placed under house arrest for the remaining 9 years of his life. Today, Galileo is finally recognized for his groundbreaking discoveries, for which he is remembered as the father of modern science. So, go back here. So, let's take a look at this quote from the text. It says, Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei provided a number of scientific insights that laid the foundation for future scientists. His investigation of the laws of motion and improvements on the telescope helped further the understanding of the world and universe around him. So, what does that phrase, laid the foundation for future scientists, even mean? Well, think about when you're building something. You need to have a really strong base to build up. If you don't have a strong base, what happens? Everything falls down. And that is what Galileo did. He made some really important discoveries that future scientists were able to take and run more experiments on and make even more discoveries. So he created that really steady base for other scientists to build off of. So, in Galileo's time, what did people believe about the speed at which objects fall? So, this was before he did his experiments. They believed that heavier objects would fall before lighter objects. What did Galileo do to test this belief? He rolled some balls down ramps. He also threw fruit off of a tower. And what did he discover? He discovered that heavier objects actually fall at the same time as lighter objects. What makes the lighter objects not fall first is because they're getting caught by the air. All right, well, what did people believe about the planets and the moons? Well, they believed that Earth was the center of everything, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. If you Back then they didn't have astronauts or telescopes or anything like that for them to be able to see out into space. So it made sense when they saw that the sun was rising and setting, and they saw the moon going across the sky. They were like, "Oh, well, we're the center of everything." But Galileo believed that the Earth was not the center of everything. The sun was the center, and Earth was the one that went around the sun. So what did he do to discover this? Well, he just made observations about um, the Venus, which is the planet that he could see with his telescope, and the way that the stars moved and everything. And he discovered that it was actually the Earth that revolved around the sun, not the other way around. All right, so what exactly is that main idea of Galileo Galilei? Biography, inventions, and other facts? Well, if you want to take all of the individual facts and kind of wrap them up into one little neat package, basically the big idea, the main idea is that Galileo made some very important discoveries during his life that allowed other scientists to build off of that. Okay? So, on your Google form, it's going to ask you just for one of the discoveries Galileo made. It shouldn't be too hard of a question. I'm not even going to walk you through it too much because all you got to do is tell me something that Galileo discovered or something he invented. All right? So, go ahead and get to work, and I will see you soon. Miss you, buddy.